Hey there, this is Dan, and in this quick video I'll be showing you actually how to use CSS to customize the design of your pages without any experience whatsoever. So you don't have to know CSS to do those things. It's really simple by using your browser. So let me show you how simple that is. So we're now inside a website on the platform, and obviously you can customize a lot of things using the controls. So you can do designs, move them around, all these things you can do with just your mouse. But obviously we don't give you all the different options in styling because there are hundreds and hundreds of different options for customization in CSS. CSS is basically like the language of making things pretty, because everything, all the designs that you see, it's made via CSS, and the HTML, maybe you've heard of that, is the actual structure. It's basically the backbone, and the CSS is what makes it pretty, the way it is. So the CSS is super simple, and it's just property and values that you add to the different elements. So let's see how that works. So here we have a design of a page, and let's say that we have a button with an icon inside. Of course, you can change the icon to be something else, let's say a tick. But you want to do some customization of this button. Let's say you want to change the icon, the spacing between the icon and the text. These are things that are not able with the builder itself, but you can do very simple with just a few lines of CSS without, again, any experience whatsoever. So let's just preview our page, open it in a new tab, and we're now inside of the page, and we want to customize this. So we're now inside our browser, and it's actually very simple to access this whole thing by just by right-clicking on the different element on the checkbox in this example. And whatever browser you're using, you have an inspect option. So there it will show on the side or on the bottom your inspector, your console, where you can actually start customizing and actually see the structure and the CSS. So in this case we have, because we hovered on the icon, we are inside the icon element itself. So this is the HTML, this is the structure, and below is the actual CSS, whatever makes it pretty, the way it looks. So in this case we have the size and we have the margin. So basically that's all that it is set up for this element, for the icon. Then you can go and find the actual text, for example, which is this span. This is another wrapper, which is the shop now, and it has different styling inside of it. And here you have like color and letter spacing and other things like this. So by doing that, you can actually see on to your screen, when you go with your mouse over the different elements, where they are and what they're wrapped in. So these are the wrappers. So we will not go into too much detail. So basically, it's all you need to know is that you find the element that you want to customize, like in this case is the eye. It is obviously shown here. It has some classes, so by using those classes you can actually customize something by targeting that element. And in this case we already have some class that applies some styling to it, so you don't have to target yourself. If you had to target yourself, this is how you do it. You just use the button icon wrapper, which is this one, so that the wrapper itself, and we find the eye element, and that's how we targeted this particular element. Anyways, so you have here the styling. Let's say that you want to change the margin. You want to have a bigger margin. All you need to do is click on the value. So again, here we have the property, and then we have the value. Let's say that you want to make it more. Let's say you want to make it 15 pixels. And you just add 15 pixels, and that's it. That created 15 pixels margin on the side. And you can adjust that. You can make it more margin or less margin. Whatever you want to do it, you can do it. And just using the arrows of your keyboard, you can adjust the pixels, for example. Same goes for the font size. You want to have it, let's say, 30 pixels, bigger icon here, or a smaller icon. Whatever it is, you can just adjust it with the pixels. There are different ways of customizing it, but yeah, pixels is a great way to do it with a single pixel difference. Now let's say that you want to add some kind of a background behind this button. Let's say that you want to make it white, and you can just type in what is the property that you want to add. In this case is a background, and I'll show you in a second where you can find all the different properties in CSS. But let's add a background, so we would just add, and if you start typing a specific property, you actually see all the different options. And here you can just add it as a background color. So just select background color, use the the double points, and then we use to add what kind of a color you want to add. Here you have crazy amount of different colors, but you can use the color codes as well, which what usually people are using, and it's for example, for white it is FFF, for black is 000. But again, you can just use one of the colors, let's say just white. And that's it. That applied this background color for the element. Then you can continue with adding more properties to that element. Let's say you want to add padding. Padding is the padding between the element and the wrapper. In this case, we want to add, let's say, 5 pixels of padding. So we can just add padding, and you can actually see the first thing that you see is padding, and then add the value, let's say 5 pixels. And that added 5 pixels around our icon. Very simple, just a few lines, and you don't have to know all these things. All you need to do is actually to know what the properties are. They're very self-explanatory, and yes, it is about learning them, but you can actually find them really easy inside places like W3 School. It's basically the best place to find different properties and everything basically about CSS. There is a place where you can see all the different properties. Like I said, there are hundreds and hundreds of different properties because you can do crazy things about design using CSS. Obviously, that's how everything is made to look pretty. In this case, let's say that you have background, and here are all the properties that you were auto-completed before. And when you click on a property, you can actually see what actually you can set up for this property as values and how you can use it with examples, etc. Like the background color, how it looks with a demo. So it's really great place, w3schools.com, to learn HTML, to learn CSS, or to just use some of these properties to see what exactly, for example, a specific property has as values, so you can use them inside the CSS. And again, it's really great because you have examples on how to do it, and it's really cool way. So here we have our targeting of this button itself. So what you can do is simply copy the whole thing. So from the whole parenthesis and everything, you just copy here this whole thing, just Control and C. Go to your website, whatever it is built, doesn't have to be built on Symfony, it can be built on any system. And to add a custom CSS, you have the option to add the custom CSS for the whole website. So this is the custom global one, or for the page only. So it will only apply for this page alone. So let's just add it for the whole website. And that's it. You copy the whole styling of this icon, and all you need to do is click on Save. And now you can actually preview it here by refreshing the page, and you'll see the styling being applied. You can also go into your website and refresh, and you will see that it is now applied. It will not go away. It's applied now within your whole website. And now if you add a different button again onto your system, then when you add an icon, you will see well, we have to change here the button color to make it to something dark, and you see now this styling is applied to this icon as well in the button, because we added this globally by targeting it this way, because this was a global styling about all the buttons, and we applied it for the whole website. Now what if you wanted to add it just for this element alone? This is based again on how to target things. So this is the next important thing, how to target a specific element. So in our system in particular, and in general, is you can use either very unique CSS to apply. So if you have access, if you're coding, you can just add it to the HTML. But in our system, every element in our platform, it has a unique ID. And you have to find that wrapper, and it's usually the one that has the class widget. So this is again, you have to find it. Basically, you have to just play around a bit to know where exactly the wrappers are. But when you go up and up and up and up, you see here we have the button, but it has more wrappers around it, and it has this ID. When you find the ID, that's the ID of the element. So in this case we have a button, so that's usually how they start. Button widget in this case. If it was a text, it was going to be text widget with some numbers. And this is the uniqueness. There is only one ID within a website, within a page, that you can use. So this is a very, very unique one. And you can just again copy this value of the ID. And if you want to target just this button, let's just save here this button that we have. And we can go again into the CSS and we can apply this ID to this styling. So we can just again add the ID this way. And make sure when you target that this ID, and you can just use some of the classes again, that they're like on a higher wrapper than what you have inside of the here the written part, which is the button icon and the path to the icon, and which is further down the tree is the button icon and the eye. So that is fine. But if you had, for example, the ID here in between, obviously it will not work because the ID is not within the button icon wrapper. It is higher in the hierarchy of the whole thing. So here we have the ID added, and the ID is with this way it is shown. And we can just click on save, and that's it. Let's just align this on the left. Click on save, and we can actually refresh here, and you see that there will be no styling applied to this button because we only targeted this one with the unique ID that it has, and it will not be applied to any other button anywhere because this is a unique ID for this button. So this way you can target things based on their IDs, and again every element on the system has a unique ID. Now you can target based on different CSS classes. Again, you can do it with this. You can see the classes, and again every class is just a way to target things, and you can do that for targeting for whatever reason. But the idea is very important if you want to target one specific element. Now here, let's say that you want to do something to this bottle, for example. Let's say that you want to rotate it, but you don't know what is the CSS for rotation, and you don't know here what it might be called in DoubleTree schools. So you can just use Google and you can say rotate CSS, for example, and you can actually find or spin or something like that, and it will actually find that CSS for you. So you don't really have to know everything. You can just use Google. You can see here a different website showing you how to rotate, and you can just copy that property, and you can go to your website and you can test it out. You can go to the element and you can just rotate it. Oh, you can see 90 degrees rotates to 90 degrees, but you want to make a very small rotation, let's say 15 degrees. Just like that. And all you need to do is to apply this CSS to this element. So how are we going to do that? Well, you don't want to target all the images on your site. So what you can do is just, you can do it for this widget. So again, we go up the tree and we find the ID. This is the element. You can see it wraps the whole image. So we can just copy the ID. Then we can go into the CSS again. We can add the ID, and you can just target it like this. You can just, again, you have the ID plus parentheses where you add the actual styling. Now we can just copy this transform. It is added to an image, but you can actually do it for the whole, in this example, for the whole element, because you can just transform the whole widget itself in our system, the whole wrapper of things. If you want to just target the image, you can just add the image at the end. So image, if it just like this, or you can just leave it like this in this example because it's only rotating the whole wrapper, and you can just click on save. So now if we refresh, this will be applied again, not to the image, but to the whole wrapper, to the whole widget itself. And as you can see, it is applied for the whole wrapper, and it is applying this rotation. So this is how simple it is that you can find different things in CSS. If you don't know what they are, you can just use Google to type in, let's say you want to do shadow CSS. You can just type it, and you can see in DoubleTree schools how to do that. You can see here a different website that shows 93 different shadow options. Actually, you can see the different designs. You don't even have to build the shadow yourself. You like a shadow, let's say this one, you can just copy it, And it has actually copied the whole CSS in this website, and you can apply it to, let's say, the whole image. And again, you can go in here as a different option here, this is a box shadow, that's why it is so long. And you can again save, refresh, and you can actually see the shadow that was applied to this whole element. So it's really simple when you just understand the basics. It's basically you have a way to target an element. You can do it globally or individually, and the properties, and you can find the properties again either googling them or finding them on W3Schools, or just by writing something here. It will show the different options. Let's say with T, you can see all the different options that they do. So you can see all these options inside the browser, and then just copy them and applying them into the page. Now, what if you want to do some customizations? Like, this is a bit more advanced, we can say. It's actually very simple, but how to do some customizations only for mobile, for example, not for desktop. This is great, but let's say we want to go on mobile, and usually the browsers have an option to show a responsive option. But let's say that you don't want this to be rotated on mobile. We added it on desktop, but how do we do it so it's not rotated or no box shadow on mobile? So you can target only mobile devices via CSS, and you can go here inside the settings again in the CSS, and you can add some styling that is only applied for mobile. So how do you do that? Well, this is something that you can actually copy below, but this is how we will use media queries. It's very simple, don't worry, you can just copy it and forget about it. But basically you tell the device, if it is in a specific resolution, to apply a specific styling. That's why how you create responsive websites and pages. So we just type in media, screen, and here we write what is the maximum width of the screen. So we want to target, let's say, mobile phones. Max width, let's say 480 pixels. So 480 pixels is like the standard of having a mobile responsive design. So usually all the phones are within 480p on portrait view. So you can have it like this, and then you have the parentheses. So every CSS rule that you add here is going to be applied only when the device is 480 pixels narrow or below. So this is the maximum width. So you don't have to bother with this. It's basically you could just copy it and just use it as a default. So here, let's say that we want to apply different changes for our two elements that we added, but only for mobile. So we can just copy those and add them here within our media query. So it has to be between the parentheses for the whole media, and then you have the different CSS again with the parentheses. So here, let's say that we want to remove the white background, we want to remove the padding, but just leave the size and the margin. So we can just, well, actually we can't do it. Here we have to do the background color to be transparent, for example, so that we make it, you can't just delete it because it will still be applied the background color from before. So you have to add a different value, in this case transparent background, and 0 pixels padding. So we just basically remove whatever padding we had and remove the background by making it transparent. So for the transform rotation, we can just do it, change it to 0 degrees, and box shadow, all you need to actually do is you can just delete the whole thing and just add none. So we have no box shadow. We just delete the box shadow that we added from the desktop. So again, this would be applied for the desktop for normally, and this will only be for whatever is under the 480 pixel screen resolution. So click on save, and now if we refresh, well, actually let's go to the desktop version again. Nothing changed, everything looks the same. But if we go on mobile, we will see that this was overwritten. This was overwritten here. We have no more the view here for the box shadow. Well, actually we have the background color. So background color seems to not like transparent, which is, well, maybe I misspelled it probably. So you can see that maybe you made a mistake, so you can just see what exactly it was. So we can go back and apply yeah, I guess I mistyped it. So you can just click on save, again refresh, and you can see you apply only the things, and you can actually see them as cross, the different things that were reapplied. So you can just see the background color is the new styling. So you can see here the previous one is overwritten by the 480 pixels, and you can go to different devices, see how they behave, and you can do that from inspect and see the different devices, what are their resolutions. If you turn it, for example, on the side, you can see how it will behave and what styling would be shown. So you can play around with those in the different resolutions. So basically these are the media queries. It's, well, you can say more advanced, but basically you can copy them from the below this video. You'll be able to find those, so you can just use them and just add your CSS there, so that it targets devices under specific resolution. Again, usually they are 480p pixels, 768 for tablets in portrait view, and 124 pixels for portrait. But with the new devices, this kind of change as well. But yeah, this is basically how you can use CSS to do customizations without knowing CSS, with just using your browser and just playing around, just using things like W3 schools, or just straight typing some things here. If you already have some styling applied to a button, you can just adjust those things, colors and stuff like that, by using your mouse, and you don't really have to do anything. And your keyboard, you can inspect any element and see what kind of styling they have, and just by using your keyboard and stuff, you can adjust and you can see how things change, either globally or individually. And by targeting them, you can do really crazy things, and you don't have to be tied by having to hire somebody to do it. Small things you can do yourself. Of course, CSS is a very vast place where you have hundreds and hundreds of different properties and values, etc. So yeah, obviously you have to learn it over time, but for basic things you can do absolutely everything yourself that you want to do, just small customizations. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you find it easy to comprehend how you can do customizations yourself, and let me know below, what do you think of this small guide? Do you find it useful? Are you going to apply some CSS to your designs by using the browser and some properties from CSS? Let me know.